we have to do the countdown?
We don't really have to do this countdown. Hey, how you doing? I didn't start the doohickey to countdown. This is the REI Rocks review. I'm here. I'm Dan Fradenburgh. Angel Williams is here. Dr. Jason Williams, PhD, is here. Let's start with Angel because you're more talkative. Angel, how you doing today?
Doing all right. Really pumped to have everybody here because we're going to be going through a really awesome session. It's Kent Ritter's session, and he's a really knowledgeable guy. He's super nice, and I'm just excited to share all the information he has.
Awesome. And so maybe we should talk about I remember it was about 2016, 2017, something like that. It was the first time where my colleagues at the real estate company I was working for mentioned that people don't even know that they need financing. People don't know that they need funding for deals, and that's what capital raising, basically the investor relations bit is all about. Who wants to say a thing or two on what that even is before Kent gets started?
All right, so I guess that's me.
Muted. Oh, it's maybe just through my ears saying, hang on, I'll figure myself out. You can talk while I'm waiting.
Can you hear me? Jason, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, so because my computer's acting a little crazy. But you'll probably hear at some point that if you've got a good enough deal, the money will come. That is a falsehood straight from the depths of hell. Just because it's a good deal does not mean the money will just magically appear. And it's great that you've got deal flow. It's great that you've got somebody that's on top of acquisitions. It's great that you have an underwriter. But your person or your people that are helping put the capital together and get the deal across the finish line, they are super important too. Because you can do everything right, but if you don't have the capital, if you don't have the investors, you can't get the deal across the finish line. So it's really important to have a good team that is able to reach out to investors, has good relationships with your investors, because they are a crucial part of any deal that you do, because that's how you get deals completed.
Excellent. So just to give you an idea of what we're up to, we always watch these videos right here at 1.5 times speed. Why do we do that? Well, part of it is because I normally watch videos at 2 times speed. But the bigger thing is I want to make sure that you know how to consume pre-recorded content faster than at live speed. And it really is a great way to accomplish way more in your day. Just imagine how much additional content you can consume, how many things you can learn for your business, your portfolio, whatever it is, just by doing all this stuff faster. So let's get started. This is Kent Ritter talking about raising capital.
So, hey guys, lots of y'all have been here all day. Some of you are just now tuning in. We are here at the Academy Presents Real Estate Investing Rocks Fall Summit, and we're back.
Okay, Angel, can you hear that? Or is it just me? Yeah, I can? Okay, cool.
To hear Kent Ritter, and he's going to talk to us about raising capital in uncertain times, which if you've been watching anything, what you've been seeing is we've had a lot of people talk about capital raising. Why would we have so many people talking about capital raising? It is because we are in an insane time right now. A lot of us feel like capital is just like drying up. People that used to give us $100,000, $200,000, they're not giving us anything anymore. And so there's a lot of fear there. I think just the instability that we're seeing and all of those things that are going on, we're very scared. And if you're scared, imagine what your investors are feeling. They're scared too. So Kent's going to talk to us about some of his methods, some of his ways that he is still raising capital even in these uncertain times. So I am going to turn it over to him. Let me pin you here. So Kent, I'm going to go ahead and pin you on the screen. And if you could just tell us a little bit about you, and then we can get started. And Dan, I'm going to pin you too, since you've got his PowerPoint.
Yeah. Did you get my slides, Dan?
Yep. It arrived. Switch different emails. It's converted.
My first slide about me, so I can kind of get started, and then we'll just
roll. You can wing it. What?
Yeah, that part I know. I got that part memorized. So hi guys, Kent Ritter. Nice to meet you all. So my first slide is who am I and why should you care? And the reason you should care is because I'm CEO of Hudson Investing. Acquired 994 units over the past three three and a half years. Raised about $25 million to do that. And do I need to admit to?
I can. Everyone are in here.
So can everybody see the slides that Dan has?
Yes, sir.
Okay, because for me it's like, hold on, let me.
Okay, yeah, you might want to switch into either speaker or gallery.
Speaker mode.
Yeah, and then I've
Gotcha.
pinned you and Dan, so it should be side by side.
All right, perfect. All right, well, so
Three biggest.
So yeah, oh, actually I want to go through it. So agenda real quick. So who am I? Why should you care? We're gonna talk about FUD and what FUD means. We're gonna talk about building trust. We're gonna talk about what the consumers or customers real estate journey looks like, because this is where I think a lot of people get this wrong. And then we're gonna talk about my 3 biggest mistakes so you guys can learn a little bit. We're gonna go rapid fire because I've got about 24 minutes and I want to leave a little bit of time for questions. So here we go. So let's go to the next one for me. So yeah, who am I? Listen, me and my family at the State Fair. I'm first off a husband and father of 3. I'm CEO of Hudson Investing. We talked about the units we've acquired, money we've raised. I'm also the host of the Ritter on Real Estate podcast. It's top 1% of all podcasts as far as downloads per month. And the reason I bring that up is because that's an important piece of capital raising, which we'll talk about. And then I'm also founder of the Indianapolis Multifamily Investor Meetup. I bring that up because it's also an important reason and piece of capital raising. And you'll start to see a common theme here where we're creating communities. And so let's digging in, going back to the agenda. So FUD, what is FUD? So FUD is, yeah, you can go forward. And then, so Dan, the way it works is, yeah, you're kind of click through. So FUD means fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And that's a lot of what we have right now. We have a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt for all these reasons that Dan's just going to click through them all right now and see them all pile up. And we've got inflation, COVID, interest rates going up, right? Housing prices going up, a recession. We can't afford gas. That headline I love. I actually just pulled that in my own reading today. That was the headline when I went to Yahoo Finance. It's like, it was like, man, if that's not summing up the market that we're in right now, right? Stocks plummet, growth fear intensifies. I mean, that's exactly what we're here to talk about. And so what do we do about it, right? What do we do? Because it's hard to raise capital in that environment, as Angel said. My personal experience, I just raised $10.5 million for 2 deals I closed July 1st. That was an extremely difficult raise. I had to keep people in the deal 3-4 times, because if you think about what happened between March and the beginning of July, I mean, that was when things really started to go south. And, so you have investors calling, well, oh, I saw this happen. How does that affect the deal? What's going on? Right. And so, so it's just, it is a unique environment. It is a difficult environment, from the biggest operators I talk to down to the smallest. I mean, everybody's having more trouble raising capital right now. So what do we do about it? Well, you got to build trust. Okay. It's really about building trust. Nobody's going to work with you. They're definitely not going to hand you money if they do not trust you. So how do you build trust? Well, there's 3 parts. First, they got to know who you are. Second, you can just go to the side. They got to like you. Right. And third, then then can they trust you. Right. But if they don't know who you are, they can't get to like you, and nobody's going to trust you if they don't like you. So you got to build know, like, trust, right? It's old sales adage. So next slide, building trust the hard way. This is 2 guys getting coffee. This is a one-on-one conversation. This is a hard way to build trust and raise capital, is by having one-on-one conversations. This is what I used to do a lot of. I still do a lot of, but this used to be my only source. You think pre-COVID, it was coffees, lunches, dinners. It was going to 10 or 12 in-person conferences, meeting people and having a lot of one-on-one conversations. And you just can only have.
I just want to say that I'm really glad that I don't have to do that. The 10 or 12 lunch conversations. Well, especially because, like, last time I checked, there's 7 days in a week. That means 7 lunches max. So if you're doing a 10 or 12, that's intense.
Yeah. So I would say too, like, there are people out there that prefer the one-on-one conversation. And I only say that because there are very successful capital raisers out there that they're just doing one-on-ones. They're not doing these big time email drip systems. They're not automating everything they do. They're still very hands-on. And so while Kit has found something that works for him, you're going to find something that works for you. And you shouldn't back down off of that. Like, whatever you find that works for you, that's going to be effective for you. And I say embrace it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep, I completely agree. One metaphor I keep on using ever since the movie Wag the Dog is I like to bring out that distinction. It's like, who's the tail? Who's the dog? Okay. And, me, just my history, I've always been the tail. I'm very rarely the dog. And if you're talking to potential investors, you really have to suit them, not the other way around. And I think that that's really, really important that people realize as part of how they're going to do it. I just find too many people are trying to do something or make something work that on the face is impossible. And like, go ahead, Angel.
No, I was going to say, and just kind of add to that. One of the other things that I really honed in on is, number one, I actually prefer texting over probably anything. Will I call an investor? I will. Will I email one? Yeah, I'll email one. I'm just always, my emails get buried in my own emails. I'm always afraid that that's what's happening there. So I prefer text. And so I have a tendency to lean toward my investors that also prefer text, because they're going to let you know what their preferred method of contact is. So if they are replying to you by email, guess what? They want you to talk to them through email. If they're calling you and leaving you voicemails, dang it, you're going to have to call those people. But if they're texting you, you get to text them back, because they're letting you know that, hey, this is one of my preferred methods of contact. And so I tend to gravitate towards that because I really like it. It's easier. I don't feel like I'm interrupting their day, because they can respond to me when they want. So I like the texting. I will call, but what you have to do is you really have to let your investor tell you what their preferred method is. And I'm not saying ask them. Watch how they respond to you. If you're sending out an email blast or whatever, and they respond to the email, there you go. If you call and they call you back, but if you call and they text you back, golden. At least in my mind. But you just have to pay attention to how they respond, because they're letting you know in their response what's the easiest and preferred method of contact and communication for them.
Yeah, I love that. And it just goes to show why we're a great team. So if you want to text somebody, text Angel. Don't text me. My problem, like, I'm not a particularly tall guy, but I got big mitts on me, right? Which is great for guitar. It's awful for texting. Okay, doing this thing, like I just skipped that boat just because of living in Taiwan. But direct messaging from social media also helps.
You know, my fingers are like the skinniest part of my body. So I've got really big hands, but not big fingers. They're lengthy. It's how I've been able to play piano, but they're not meaty. So I can text really effectively.
There you go. Effective texting. That's good stuff. And then the only other thing that I figure we'll probably get to later, maybe we can discuss a little bit more, is for me, it's super important that I don't write blank checks for other people's time. And when I do that, I think it also gets across to people that, it's a mutual thing, and it's understood. If somebody keeps their schedules tight, their windows of availability tight, then you're not going to be going on forever. But let's see what else Kent has to say.
So many one-on-one conversations, right? You only have so much bandwidth. There's only so many hours in the day. There's only so many places you can be at one time. And so that's the hard way. So go to the next slide. Now, there's not an easy way to raise capital, but the not so hard way is to build a funnel. And so that's what I want to talk about a little bit. And I'll bring it around to in times of uncertainty. But you've got to be able to, the only way, if it's harder to raise capital, meaning let's just talk about your close rate is lower, right? Maybe it used to be 1 out of 2 people will invest. Or maybe that drops to 1 out of 4, 1 out of 8, right? You've got to have a bigger funnel, because you got to be able to bring those people in. And so the not so hard way is to build a funnel. And what this funnel shows is you go from awareness to interest to evaluation, right? They're thinking about you, they're thinking about the deal, to selecting you. And then on the other side, you go to loyalty and then advocacy. And that's huge. So my 2 biggest ways of finding investors are, 1 is my podcast, and we'll talk more about that. 2 is referrals, right? And referrals are super powerful, because those are going to be really high conversion rates, because somebody that knows you, likes you, and trusts you, and somebody that, like, they're being referred by somebody they know, like, and trust, right? And so that connection is already there. And so it's about, how do you not only get that person to invest in your deal, but how do you get them to become loyal to you and invest in future deals, right? Because you're not looking for any investor to invest in 1 deal. You want every investor to invest in your next 12 deals, right? But how do you not only get them to invest in your next 12 deals, but to tell their friends, right? And to get their friends in, because that is going to be your best conversion source. So I think there's 2 tips. 1 is you got to create a funnel. 2 is you got to create advocates. So go to the next one, please, Dan. How do you create, and I only have, we only have like 24 minutes, so I'm not going to hit on like everything here, but the most important of building the funnel is the top. So how do you create a big funnel? Well, if you're going to raise capital, you got to put yourself out there. You have to become a content creator some way. You got to pick your poison and you got to start creating content because you have to create awareness. That's where it starts. So for me, I started with the podcast, then we started putting it on YouTube, right? Then we started taking the podcast, cutting it up into reels and getting that on social media. And then we started a blog on the website, right? So I'm doing all of these things right now, a lot of it being driven off of one pillar piece, and then like syndicating that out, right? Splitting it up, repurposing, using it all, turning a podcast into a blog through transcription, right? Recording audio and video at the same time. Video goes to YouTube. So there's, so the purpose is, if your close rates are down, you got to create a bigger funnel, right? And then with that bigger funnel, you got to find a way at the end to build referrals and turn those people into advocates. So I think the most important thing, the game changer for me with raising capital, was putting myself out there, getting over my imposter syndrome and limiting beliefs, and being willing to be a thought leader in the industry. And if you're going to raise capital, you've got to find a way to be a thought leader. Otherwise you're not going to be successful. And you're not gonna be able to do it at scale, and you're going to burn out having 1,000 one-on-one conversations. So go down the next one, which is, one-to-many relationships. And then to the next, so as we fly through this, the next piece is, how do you have more successful conversations to improve your close rate? And that's about the customer's real estate journey. So when I was doing sales for management consulting services, I was a management consultant for 12 years. We would talk a lot about the customer's journey and meeting the customer where they were at in their journey. So what that means is customers start at different places, right? For example, and where I think a lot of people go wrong, especially when they're first raising capital, is you've learned all this stuff and you've got a great deal, and you just want to kind of vomit it all at the investor to show them how much you know and what an expert you are, and that you've got this awesome deal. Well, to the first thing on this slide, what if they're still thinking, is real estate right for me, right? They don't even know that they want to invest in real estate, and you're trying to pitch them on your specific deal. Like, you're over here and they're over here, and you are not meeting them where they're at, right? That's what I mean. So to me, there's really like 4 levels of this. Excuse me. Is real estate right for me? So if they don't know real estate's right for them, convince them that they should be investing in real estate, right? They may be 100% in the stock market. It's all in their 401k. And that's all they've ever heard of, right? So,
and really, I think they should be educating themselves at this phase right here. If you're not sure if real estate's right for you, the best thing is to get educated and meet people who are in the industry. And what better place, once I find the thing, here it is, than Marvelous Mondays, right, Angel? I think this is a great place for people to go. Why don't you talk about it a little?
For sure. Marvelous Mondays is an awesome place. It's our virtual weekly meetup. We meet every Monday at noon Eastern, and it's a lot of fun. You get to know people on a more intimate level, and you just get to know who and what they are and what they like, basically really what their buy box is. What are they looking for? Are they in commercial multifamily? Are they a passive investor? Are they an active investor? Do they do residential real estate? Do they do commercial? What are they doing? And it's super laid back. And what I've really enjoyed about it over these past few years is that we really become a family there. Like, we look out for one another. If we don't show up to things, we're like, hey, is everything okay? We're kind of looking out for one another. And it's just a really neat place to be. And I would love to have you join us.
Mm-hmm. And it's free. And if you don't love free, then what's wrong with you? All you have to do is visit the link on the screen, theacademypresents.com/meetup link. Or if you have your phone handy, you can just scan that QR code and that'll bring you to the registration. It will not cost you anything except for your time. And it's a great way to meet people, even people who, maybe they don't even have a deal going on. So it's not like they're trying to get in your pocket. It's getting education is so important in this industry because there's so much to it.
Yeah. And I was going to kind of bounce off of that too. We were at an event. We were talking to this guy, and Jason had been talking to him. He's a friend of Jason's. And so Jason had been talking about real estate, talking to him a little bit about what we do. And by the end of the conversation, he's like, yeah, I decided not to invest. I wanted to get a new truck instead. And it really caught me off guard because I was like, man, he could have invested and let the investment help pay for his truck. But he didn't understand it. And it wasn't that Jason didn't do a good job of explaining it. It was that he's never really been in a syndication, and he doesn't understand how the distributions work. And he didn't understand that his money could have worked for him twice. Like, he could have invested and it could have bought the truck while he's still in a deal where he's going to make a big chunk of change on the turn or on a capital event. but he'd never done it. He didn't understand that's how those things work. And so instead he took that $50,000 and went and bought a truck. We're in Texas. Trucks are expensive here. But that was how it went down. And when he left, I was like, damn, Jason, he could have put his money in our deal and used the proceeds, used the distributions to buy that truck, or at least help pay for the truck. And
Yeah,
Jason,
I think. Yeah, I was about to say, I think when people do that, I think the issue is they're thinking of money in terms of lump sums, and they don't think of it as something that's changing value all the time. It's a rate. Money is a rate. It's not a lump sum. People, when you're a kid, you're like, oh, I want to be a millionaire. Well, what does that mean? It means you have $1 million in the bank. It's like almost no millionaires have $1 million in the bank because they're aware that it's a rate and inflation is a real thing. And if you leave it in a bank, it's going to be worth, 6% less or whatever less. I saw on LinkedIn, I saw an attorney talking about, oh, make sure that you invest in a retirement plan. So you get your 4% or something like that. And you're not just getting the 0.6% of your savings account. But at the same time, you're still losing like 2% of the value with current inflation at 4%. So it's like the numbers, once you really get into it and you understand that the play is not about a lump sum. The play is not about having $1 million in the bank. It's about having assets that because you own them, they pay for all your bills. That's financial freedom right there, right?
absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Good stuff. So we're talking to Kent Ritter today, his presentation from the REI Rocks Summit. We got another one coming up in March, which is next month. It's just a month away. So we're going to be doing that. But he's talking about raising capital for your commercial real estate deals. We're playing at 1.5 times speed. So you get used to learning at this speed and consuming pre-recorded content. And that's why the captions are extra helpful. Let's continue.
Why real estate, right? And then you can go through, Dan, to the next one. And it's, and for some reason I'm looking over here on the side. I think it's going to move when Dan moves his, but it's which asset class should you choose? Oh, now it's up on mine on the front. So which asset class should you choose? Because real estate has a lot of different ways to do it, right? You can invest in single family, industrial, self-storage, multifamily, retail, pick your poison, right? Which asset? So convince them why multifamily is the right thing, or why self-storage is the right thing, or whatever you're doing. Why is that the right thing? And then is this, so I'm from their perspective, is this sponsor the right one? Like, if you're trying to pitch them a deal, but they don't even know they want to work with you, again, you're not meeting them where they're at. So convince them why you're the right one. What's your credibility? What's your track record? What's your experience of success, right? And everybody has to start out. No one has real estate experience before they do a deal, but find something in your life that shows that you've achieved something great, that you've started with a goal, you've achieved it, you've had business success, you've overcome an adversity. You need to be able to show them a path to believe that this person is someone that I want to put my money with, right? And oh yeah, now it's the point to tell them all about your expertise and that good stuff, right? Then next one, is this deal the right fit? This is where most people start. Most people start trying to tell people about their deal, and they've skipped the first 3 steps. And if you do that, you're not going to have a ton of success. So, one more thing before we get to my 3 big mistakes. How do you figure out where the investor is on their journey? Ask them questions. That's the other major mistake people make, and that's that word vomit. Where like, if I have an investor call, I'm not talking about if I have an investor call, my goal is to speak 20% of the time on the first investor call. I want them to speak 80% of the time. And I'm controlling the call by asking them questions because I want to know, I'm trying to figure out where are they in this journey, right? And I'm trying to figure out what are their goals, right? How long can they have their money tied up? What are their return expectations, right? Maybe they're not even a good fit for what I'm trying to do, right? You want to find that out before you go through 3-4 calls with them. And at the end, they just don't sign up. And you're like, why didn't they sign up? Well, because you were misaligned from the start, right? So you've got to start, by asking questions, right? And letting them talk and really getting to know them and figuring out. My first call that I have with investors is all about figuring out their goals and figuring out where they are on this journey and figuring out their timelines. Because they may be like, yeah, I know I want to invest, but I've got a bunch of stock options that are vesting in like 6 months. And at that point, I'm gonna have the capital to be able to do it. So I'm like, okay, well, this person can't invest in the deal I have now in the next 6 months, but I'm gonna come back around with them, right? So you got to figure that stuff out. And that's how you do that. You ask a bunch of questions. Now, my 3 biggest mistakes. Number 1.
All right. So Kent, before he moves on here, I got a question that I think will be good for Jason. I think for people who are in real estate, who are honest, I think this is a pretty easy question, which is there a perfect kind of real estate for everyone? like just a perfect kind of real estate. Now, of course, Angel, Jason, you've got some single family. I know that we've looked at some mobile home parks, RV parks, things like that. Jason, if somebody asks you, is there a perfect kind of real estate for everyone? Can you say a few words on that?
Are you saying, is there one type that's perfect for everyone, or does everyone have a perfect type?
I'm sure just about everybody has a favorite, but really, I'm bleeding for an answer of no, and why. So as far as a perfect kind of real estate, we always are talking about multifamily, and there are a lot of things that are fantastic about multifamily. But there are some other people who would prefer a different type of commercial real estate. So what comes to your mind, Jason?
Yeah, no, I mean, a lot of it comes down to what your wheelhouse is. I know people who are killing it in self-storage. I know people who do commercial triple net real estate. So, I mean, everyone has their own niche. Everyone has their own skill set, and triple net doesn't necessarily carry over into multifamily and vice versa. So that's just another skill you have to learn. So it really just depends on what you're interested in. Start learning about it, and then you can go from there. As an LP, though, I don't think it really matters because it's all about the same. You invest, your limited partner. You don't really do anything except collect distributions if you invest with a good team. So.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And I'll stack on that too. I was talking to Randy Joe yesterday, and she has done multifamily. She's done some triple net. She's looking at RV parks. She's a passive investor. And she and I talked about, like, if we were to switch gears and go into a different asset class, we would have to learn about that asset class or bring someone on the team that already knows about it. And so that's kind of how you can move from asset class to asset class without taking all the time to learn about a new asset on the active side. So I would just kind of put that out there. And when it comes to meeting your investors where they are, I think that's one of the reasons why we've had a lot of success, is because Jason and I have been in this space for a long time. We've been residential for 20 years, but we've been in multifamily for like 4 or 5 now. And I go to a lot of meetups. I go to a lot of events. I meet a lot of people. And we just talk like friends. And I get a really good feel for where they're at and what their knowledge set is. And many of the investors that have invested with us, they already have a really solid understanding of real estate. And so when they invest with us, it's not for the deal. It's not for the returns. It's because they want to see us be successful. And so yes, we're going to where they are. We're meeting them where they are. And then they like us and they trust us and they want to help us. And so it just comes back around to this idea that the deal doesn't matter nearly as much as the people who are putting the deal in place. So just kind of keep those things in mind, and don't be afraid to become friends with your investors if you're not already, because it can be really helpful. And when things go wrong, they're going to want to help you because you are their friend. And so if they have any knowledge whatsoever, if they have any experience whatsoever, they're going to be offering you advice and helping you try and turn things around. They're not going to be mad at you. There's no reason to be afraid to talk about the things that are going rough or the things that are going wrong. Because if you're open about it, they're going to be really appreciative of that fact, number one. And then people like to help people. They're going to want to try and help you. And so just keep that in mind.
I love that. So the other thing that came to my mind too is, like, I still have a little bit of hangover from the eviction moratorium back from 2020. And so it concerns me that the government will turn around and say, it's like, okay, so you can't evict people even if they aren't paying. And so that's something that might make something like self-storage a little bit more inviting, because after all, you don't have to evict people in the same way. But when I say that there's no perfect form of real estate, even if you are a passive investor, you have to consider the amount of time it takes for you to find your next deal that actually has enough meat on the bone. Because like with triple net, you're competing with anybody with $1 million just sitting around that they want to plant into like a Starbucks, a piece of land with a Starbucks or other national credit tenants in it there. So that's the only other thing that I'd want to mention is if you get into self-storage, it might be a little bit more difficult to find a deal that's like $10 million self-storage deals. That's pretty rare. Whereas like a $10 million apartment complex, that's nowhere near as rare. So
I don't know. I have no idea about self-storage because I don't really know anything about self-storage.
Well,
I call Masha.
there you go. Good stuff. All right, let's continue. We're talking to Kent Ritter. He's talking about raising capital in uncertain times. Like right now is one of them. I just think that a lot of people, if they do believe that there's going to be a recession, that might be one of the things on their mind. But let's see more what he's saying.
I didn't start early enough. So let me tell you, my first time I set out to raise capital, I raised half as much as my goal. And that's not an uncommon story. That's a very common story. And one of the reasons is because I should have started 6 months earlier prepping my network that I was looking at deals and here's the type of deal and here's what's coming. What you should do is if you don't have a deal and you should be raising money before you have a deal is you need to find an example deal, underwrite a deal, put it together and just take it to people, walk them through it, practice your pitch.
I got to pause there again too, which is that the real first step is to document your relationships with those people. You got to build those relationships and you got to document them. And I'd also say the other thing that you should really be doing is you should be actually spitting the sentence out of, hey, you said you're looking for these. If I have that, you can be expecting a call from me saying, this is what I've got that matches your buy box. Just if people don't know that you're going to be calling one day, then they're going to be really, really surprised. And you've just created a much more uphill battle. And I think that's what Kent's referring to here. So excellent.
Pitch. Yeah, I did think it would be easier. And make sure that you can hone that and get that through. But also you got to warm people up and you got to get people comfortable with the idea. So what you do is you get a practice deal and you walk them through it and you say, okay, if I, in the future, say in the next 6 months, if I bring you a deal that looks just like this deal, fits this deal's model, same type of cash flow, return expectations, is that something you would be interested in investing in? Or would you know somebody would be interested in investing in this, right? That's how you get them primed. So start early, start at least 6 months before you actually think you're going to need the capital. The next one is I underestimated the need to change perspective, right? So when you first start raising capital, you're gonna be raising capital from your friends and family because those are the people that are gonna invest with you without a track record. But here's what I underestimated, that even though they knew me and they liked me, they didn't trust me with their money yet, right? Because they saw me as their fraternity brother from college, their coworker, their guy, their high school buddy they played football with, the guys on their softball team, I don't know, all these different ways that people view you, right? And they may like the hell out of you, but that doesn't mean they're gonna give you 50 grand or more. And so what I realized, and creating the thought leadership is a huge piece of this, is you have to change people's perspective about who you are. They've got to view you as a real estate expert and someone that's credible and educated and trustworthy. And that can be very different than the guy that they get beers with on Friday night, right? And so you really do have to take, and that's why it takes so long, because that only comes through months of talking about real estate and showing them what they're doing, showing them what you're doing in that process to change their perspective about who you are. And then, last one, I wasn't organized. I did not have a good process. I basically had a bunch of spreadsheets and I was trying to track and update spreadsheets and track people or back in the napkin, right? Write that, I need to reach out to these 3 people today. Didn't have an organized process to know who I talked to, log what I talked about and be able to reference in the future what we had discussed, right? And then make sure that I'm following up. Following up is huge because almost nobody's going to invest with you the first time you talk to them. It's going to take multiple conversations. But if you don't have a system in place and you have 100 people you're reaching out to, how are you going to remember who you reached out to and when and what you talked about? And if you can't reference, who they are and who their wife or husband is or significant other and kids and job and bring those things into the conversation to show that you were paying attention, you're not going to have nearly as much success. So you got to have a system. So those are my 3 biggest mistakes. And that's why I only raised half as much capital the first time as I set out to. So that was kind of rapid fire. We've got like 6 minutes left. Happy to answer any questions that people have. about raising capital.
Absolutely. So I would just say we weren't organized either because we assumed it would be easy because we knew a ton of people who were like, this is going to be simple.
Mhm.
It's not simple, but having that podcast, having that educational platform, having a thought leadership platform, having those things in play for the 3-4 years before we went active side were priceless. There
Mhm.
is no way in the world we would have been able to raise $1 million in our first raise had we not had all of those things in play. Because like I put in the chat, we were the lead sponsors in our own first deal. That is not the norm. And if you ask Charles Lemaire, he'll say, I don't know how the hell she raised that money.
Yeah.
Because somebody like him who's been in 75 deals, they're not going to invest with, number one, a first timer, surely not a first timer that's the sponsor of their own deal.
That's
and
right.
so you've got to have those relationships solidified and in play when you get started. And another thing, like family and friends, dude, we raised $250,000 from family and friends. That was it. We needed 1.8, 1.9.
Mhm.
So you're either going to have a whole lot more family and friends that are willing to invest with you, or you're going to have yourself solidified on your platform and have some mavericks, have some people that are 100% for you and understand you and trust you. So I'm just going to put that out there too. So I'm kind of, I'm reinforcing what you're saying, Ken, because it is so true. It is so true. So
Yeah, absolutely.
We have some questions in the chat too.
Yeah.
Sorry.
so,
Go ahead, Kate.
and Sean, I see your hand up. Do you have a question?
Yeah.
You know me, I always have questions, Angel. Kent, first I want to say thank you so much for being open to sharing your biggest mistakes. And I have to agree 110%, not getting started really before I had my first deal. My first deal, I think I committed to raise $50K more than what I was going to invest myself because I had never raised capital. Fortunately, I had partners that could pick up the slack. And I told them that going in. I said, hey, I've never raised capital. No idea what the heck I'm doing. And so I learned a lot on that first one. And yes, Angel, it is hard. We'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
You've encouraged me, Kent, to take that next step and finish building out my platform. I've been making some appearances here and there, but I haven't really taken an organized approach to it. And that being organized applies not only to my whole overall approach, but also during individual properties when you're trying to raise that capital. So
pause it right there.
Yeah, I guess if you
now that's one thing that our coach was really adamant about. He said you have to have a thought leadership platform. And I will say Kent and I, Jason, we all have the same coach. We're all with Joe Fairless. But if you look at Joe and you say, what was his thought leadership platform? All right, how many episodes of his podcast are there? It is the longest running daily podcast on real estate investing. Absolutely it is. That is one of his main thought leadership platforms. He does have a blog. He does have a website. He does have Best Ever. He's got all these other things going too. But the thing that always stands out in my mind is the fact that he has thousands upon thousands of podcast episodes. That is insane to me. And there's some other guys that got into Joe's program that, guess what? They all do daily podcasts too. It's hard enough for me to do a Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And that's usually one recording that we split. But I just think about the thought leadership platform and what it does for you. And Jason may not like to have his face all over everything. He may not like to talk to tons and crowds of people, but I don't mind it. And so by us working together, we were able to create a thought leadership platform. And I 100% credit that with our ability to raise capital effectively.
I love it. And you know that my big trick with Jason is I just don't give him a choice. Like when I put this on the screen and I ask about underwriting, which is Jason's big forte there. And you can find out more by going to theacademypresents.com/UW, or you can scan that QR code that's on the screen. If you're wondering, how can I get clothes with a guy with a bow tie featured all over it? That's a different link. That's the store. You'll have to contact us. In the chat would be a good way to get reminded. But as far as underwriting not being all created equal, who wants to say a few things about what it looks like when you get Jason's help?
Okay, well,
if you had one thing to say about
I hit my earbud by accident and I unpaused it. That was terrible.
So I'm not good at self-promotion. Maybe Jason's better than me, but I'll promote him because, well, I think he's pretty amazing. But really the big difference between what you're going to find with a lot of other underwriters and underwriting programs is that they claim to be conservative, but they're really not. And I put that out there because we've had 2 experiences in the last 6 months where one was with a fund and the person that is the manager of the fund was like, I was so excited about the underwriting because I didn't have to do anything with it. I didn't have to make it more constrained or more conservative. I didn't have to do more stress tests because you had already done it. And then when the bank said, hey, can you be a little bit more aggressive? I'm pretty sure there's not too many other people out there in the world that have ever had a bank say, hey, you think you can be a little bit more aggressive with your underwriting there? So that's just two things that happened in the last 6 months. The other thing we've got is when Jason is underwriting and the numbers work, it's going to be a good deal. And that's not just the underwriting he's done for us, because he's also done custom creations for other people. He's helped them work their numbers. He's put their numbers into his spreadsheet. He's shared some info with them, because those are the services he can give you. Like he can look at your numbers in your spreadsheet and be like, yeah, it looks great. But he can also take your numbers and put them in his spreadsheet and see how close your spreadsheet gets. He can be your underwriter, which in that case, it's kind of a twofer, because we work as a team. And if you get him, you probably get me too. And so we're a pretty awesome team. So we would love to be that part for you. But there is that part where he becomes your underwriter. And so he is a part of your GP team. So there's a big spread. There's checking your numbers in your own stuff, all the way to using our proprietary spreadsheet as a member of your GP team. So there's all the space in between. And when you talk to Jason, you're gonna pay that upfront fee. It's like a deposit, but it's gonna go toward the overall price, because he's in pretty high demand, and unfortunately his time isn't free. And so by him offering you that consulting call, you get to go ahead and start making a payment towards the overall fee or the overall investment.
Excellent. And so the only way that you are going to get anything for free really is if you subscribe. So here's a sandwich make sure you hit that on YouTube. So YouTube starts paying for that. I should make it flash a few more times, because I think it's exciting when you see this huge sandwich on the screen here. But really, it's a lot about personal branding. Let's finish off what Kent has to say, and then we'll get into a little bit of that for the audience. Let's continue. Again, do not adjust your television set. It actually is playing at 1.5 times speed. Let's go.
What would you focus on first to start putting your platform, whatever that is, together?
As far as like, what if you're going to do a podcast, a blog, something like that? Yeah. Well, I mean, one, I think like pick your poison, right? And focus on one at first. So, right, if you want to do a podcast, do that. If you're a writer and you do a blog, do that. If you want to do TikToks, do that. I mean, just got to pick your poison and stick with one and get really good at that. And then go to another one and figure out how to repurpose what you're doing. Right. So I think that's the first step. And then I think you gotta kind of figure out, your persona. So you gotta figure out how you're going to show up and kind of what your brand is going to be. Right. Because you want to be consistent in your messaging. I don't think you want to be super goofy one day and then super formal the next. People are going to be confused. I think you want to be consistent, figure out how you're going to show up. Are you going to be an expert, or are you going to be a learner that's on the journey with people? Right. There's different ways to approach it. But I think you got to figure that out. And I think, you're figuring that out while you're figuring out same time kind of who your avatar is, like who's your audience, because that's going to affect how you message. And so I think before you launch anything, you got to figure that stuff out. And then there's a great book. What's a Seth Godin book? Like, it's just marketing, something like that. I can't remember right now.
I'm looking around my room too. I've got a ton of books, but this is like the number one thing. So in case you didn't know, Joe Fairless is my coach. But one of the things he talks about is your thought leadership platform, and you are surrounding yourself with experts before you're an expert, because in people's minds, they don't see you as not an expert. They see you as, holy crap, this person is surrounded by experts. They must be an expert too.
Yeah. It's kind of like, it's like going to a party versus hosting the party, right? There's always the person hosting the party has like the situational control, if you will, right? There's always a higher status level in that situation for the person hosting the party than the person attending the party. And so it's like, it's great to be on other people's podcasts, to be able to get in other networks. But if you're hosting your own, there's just a higher status level. And that's just another good tip.
Well, and I would just say that, like, my podcast doesn't have a ton of views, but you know what? People know I have a podcast. And there are plenty of people that listen to it, because when they listen to it, I lose my mind. Like they tell me, hey, I heard your podcast. And immediately what do my eyes do? They go to the ground and I'm shifting foot to foot, because it's like almost embarrassing. I'm like, oh my God, you heard me on a podcast. Oh my God. Because I've got that imposter syndrome, right? I think all of us do at some point or the other, right? But I don't know. Kent, maybe you don't have any imposter syndrome.
No. I'm full of imposter syndrome. And that was what I had to get over to, I had a lot of limiting beliefs I had to get over to start my podcast about, why is anybody going to listen to me? There's 2 million podcasts out there. Why is anybody going to care? Right. One thing that really helped me was I had a mentor say, it's not about what you say, it's about how you say it. Because there's only so much that you can say about real estate. I mean, real estate's been around for thousands of years. It's about how you say it, because the way that I say it, I'm going to say it in a way that's going to resonate with certain people. And you're going to say it in a way that's going to resonate with different people. Right. And so when you think about it from a mission driven perspective, in that my goal is to get as many people investing in real estate as possible. And part of that is educating them on how. Well, they may go out and listen to Angel's podcast, and Joe Ferris's podcast, and everybody else's podcast. And because they don't really resonate with them, that doesn't really click. Then they hear my podcast and they hear me saying it a different way. And they're like, I get it. Now it makes sense. That for me I was like, wow, that's really cool. That's what helped me get over all the crap about, oh, I'm not good enough, or anybody's gonna listen and whatever. So that was a huge piece for me.
Well, and I think that part is where you find your tribe. And if you haven't been able to identify an avatar, which by the way, I haven't been, the people that connect with you and become your tribe, that's how you learn about your avatar. Like if you haven't been able to set an avatar, look at who's following you. Look at who is investing their time in you. That is your avatar.
Mm-hmm.
And I look at the people that I spend time with, and I look at the people that follow me. I'm like, holy crap, I still don't know. And it wasn't until my friend told me, was like, hey, these are sincerity junkies. I was like, what the heck are you talking about? But it was more those people that absolutely resonate with the people that bear it all. And not everybody is going to be one of those people. And some people bear it all and you're like, oh, you're such a craphead. It's like you're lying. This isn't really what you feel. But you're going to see other people in your life that you're like, man, this person's for real. And this is someone that I want to be aligned with for a long time. And those are the people that you connect to. And those are the people that you choose to be a part of. You choose to invest with, and you choose to have those long-term relationships with, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, that's what this whole business is about, long-term relationships, right? I mean, you're trying to form deep relationships, and it starts with that top of that funnel, right? How do you create that know and like, and then hopefully you can get the trust as they get to know you a little more. So I saw a couple other questions I want to make sure I got to. So Kevin,
all right, before we move to that next one, I think there's an idea that I think people in the audience could really use, especially if they haven't really gotten into their personal branding. And a lot of it has to do with how society works in high school, which is, I think that in high school, we learn not to draw too much attention to ourselves, because you're kind of like painting a target for, like the bullies, the people who, just love to smack talk people. You got a little bit of an issue with that. But on social media, you have to take the exact opposite approach. You always have to put yourself out there, because the only way that something that is applicable to you gets out there on these platforms is if your picture, your name, and your statement is right there in the audience's face. And like the main thing that comes to me though is, I think, you mentioned personal branding, you mentioned imposter syndrome is what I meant in the discussion here. And I think some people are going to be out there and saying like, yeah, but nobody's going to like me. I've never had a bunch of people saying, it's like, oh, well, I just can't get enough of, like Angel Williams, or I can't get enough of Dan Fradenburgh, or whatever your name is. I definitely had that. And then also on my social outreach, all my social media presence, I did a lot of stuff that bugs people. And it was to test the algorithm to find out, does controversy actually work? And I think between the three of us, I think we can very confidently tell people that just putting yourself out there, you are going to get some people who you are exactly the type of person that they want to be around, regardless of, how quiet you are. In Jason's case, I don't want to say anything about Angel as far as like, like why somebody wouldn't like you. Me, I just think it's really obvious. It's like, it's just that I just can't let sleeping dogs lie is my thing. But what comes to your mind on that subject, Angel?
I would just say that, I know that Kent says, identify your avatar, identify, what you're going to do, who you're going to be speaking to. I say just get started. You can figure that stuff out along the way, but just get started. I thought that short-lived podcasts were probably 15, 20 episodes. It's 7. You got to make it through 7 to have some level of staying power. And Trevor Oldham told me that, and I was just like, 7? Are you joking? That's nothing. Because, I've got 225 something episodes out, which is actually more like 70 or 80. Because remember, I take 1 and cut it into 3. Just a little tip there. But 7 was so low to me. And when I think about how we got started, and I think about how we got started in the summit, it was a conversation Jason and I had of how do we monetize what I've got? All I do is talk. And that was where the idea of, hey, let's do a afternoon webinar. Well, let's do a 1-day event. I started reaching out and asking people if they would speak. And at the end of 24 hours, I had 14 yeses. And so then I'm talking to Dan Hanford, and he's like, oh, it's just coordinating people. Because I'm like, what's the difference between a 1-day, a 2-day, and a 3-day event? And if it was just coordinating people, I was like, well, that's nothing. I'll just do a 3-day event. So here I am. I've just left teaching. I've never done anything. Never had I been on a podcast. I don't even think I had been on a podcast at that point. Never been on a podcast, never put on any kind of a large event. I talked in front of college classrooms because I taught college. So I knew I could talk, and I could talk intelligently about things, but I had never done any of those big things. And it's kind of one of the benefits of me, and I do have ADHD, so I'm a little impulsive, and I don't look at the details. I just say, hey, I'm going to do this, and I do it. And so that's one thing I always put out there is don't overthink it. Because if you overthink it, you're going to think yourself right out of it. Mm-hmm. Just do it and just stick with it and try it.
Yep. There's a lot of hubris, honestly. So one thing, I don't know how much background you have in marketing, but one of the jokes among marketers is that everybody thinks that they understand marketing. And that's really frustrating if you've actually really spent a lot of time on it. But it's that hubris that I want to talk about. Really, it's just saying you really think you're omniscient. You really think you know how people will react to every little thing that you do. It's just nonsense when you actually are presented with the data. So once you've got to the point where you've put out, hundreds of pieces of content, these different platforms, they have analytics to show you, it's like, hey, people like this. That's the science. That people have been reacting with that, so do more of this and less of that stuff that's getting 1 view, 2 views, 5 views, more of the stuff that's getting thousands of impressions and stuff like that. I think it's very, very important. But we're almost done this presentation. This is the REI Rocks Review. We always start this live stream at 11 a.m. Eastern on Fridays. We review this content from the REI Rocks Summits. Sometimes it's a panel discussion. Sometimes it's a masterclass like this one. But it's always super duper valuable stuff for your commercial real estate development as far as a professional getting in as an investor and all that kind of fun stuff. So let's finish it off with Kent Ritter.
How did you get organized? Invest in a CRM, invest in a good CRM, and make sure that you use it religiously. I mean, it's just creating a habit. You have to, if I'm on the phone with somebody or we're doing a Zoom call, over here, I've got my HubSpot open and I've got them up and I'm typing keynotes so that I know, okay, they've got 2 kids, Danny and Sally. I know that they're an electrical engineer. I know that they want to invest this much. I know they went to Notre Dame. I know, getting all that stuff in and then setting reminders to follow up, because you can't remember. At the beginning, I thought I could remember everything. And especially as your list grows, you realize very quickly you cannot remember everything. And it's following up is the thing that most people just don't do. And if you follow up, it makes a huge difference. And, I don't mean badgering them, but I mean, just, every couple months, if people that haven't invested, make sure that you're reaching out, seeing how they are, especially if there's a life event going on, that just shows that extra level of care. Also, something that we do is we send out a newsletter, right? So newsletters are a great way to stay in touch of what's going on in the business. Keeping people in the loop, but that one-on-one outreach is huge, but you have to systematize it. You can't be the one clicking the email every time. You've got to have systems in place to make sure that you can just build it at scale. That's the only way you can scale.
Yeah, absolutely. And Kent, thank you so much for being here. I wish that I had been better with the time zones and you would have been here for a whole hour. That's on me. All right. I suck at time zones. All of my friends here that have been in my meetups, everything else, they're all like, yeah, no, man, she sucks at time zones. So I apologize to everybody here that we couldn't have a longer session because Kent's got amazing knowledge to share on capital raising, but we are following this up with Brian Briscoe moderating the panel on capital raising. So it's not like you're really missing a whole bunch. You're missing Kent specific, which is a big deal, but you're still going to get some capital raising points. So stick around, because for the next hour, Brian Briscoe is about to moderate a panel that is amazing. And before I click over to Brian, just Kent, thank you so much.
Oh,
This
you're welcome.
was awesome. And I don't know if you looked in the chats, but one of the guys that was like, this is, lots of great truths, is Edmund Chen. And Edmund is amazing when it comes to the whole capital raising scene. He was in charge of the finances for a lot of family offices. And so the things that he shares, part of those methods, is the reason why Jason and I were able to raise $1 million on our first raise. And it's something I'm very proud of, because how many people get to say that, right?
Yeah, that's awesome.
A lot of people goose egg on the first raise. And I thought that was going to be me and Jason. And that isn't how it wound up being, because I listened to what Edmund said, and I listened to what Brian said, and I listened to what, some of the things you've said on podcasts, and we assimilated those things into what we were doing, and it worked. So to y'all, those of y'all out there listening, don't discount the things that you hear, because they work. You just have to do them. And are they scary? 100%.
Mhm.
Just do it. Dang it. Just do it. Do it.
Well, awesome. Well, thank you, Angel. Appreciate it. And I hope this is valuable for you all. And, I guess, if folks have other questions, they want to reach out to me, they can definitely email me.
Okay. What was your contact information? I'll make sure it gets out here.
Yeah. Let me just put it in the chat here.
Awesome. All right. So I'm going to stop the recording and restart so we don't corrupt files.
All right. I love that, especially because that means they have to bug us if they want the contact information. I'm totally on that. That's fantastic. So you can stop that. Yeah, excellent. So we always do the doggy bag at the end of these sessions. What are the takeaways? What, Angel, do you want to go first?
I can go first. So probably some of the biggest things that he talks about is putting those systems in place. And that's something I need to do more of. Like, the only system I have is a system for calling people, even though I'd rather text them. I do have a system for calling people. And I've shared that in a lot of places where I do the double dial, the voicemail, and the text. It gets 2 touches out of the way. And when you get them on the phone, you got 3. Not that that's a hard and fast rule, but you really, it comes to, I think that's part of that, meeting people where they are. And by doing the method that I created, by using that system, I find out how do they want the call or they want the text? Because they're either going to call me back or they're going to text me back. And so I know right there which of those 2 methods do they prefer. Mm-hmm. And so I'm meeting people where they are as far as their communication style goes. When it comes to meeting people where they are in their real estate investing educational journey, a lot of the people I talk to are very familiar with what's going on in the space. I talk to a lot of fellow syndicators. I talk to a lot of passive investors that have already been investing in the space. Now, Jason tends to talk to people that probably haven't been investing in the space. And so I like to believe that, I'm this great educator. I'm the face of the educational platform. But when I look at the investors that Jason talks to, he's the one that's actually teaching people and talking to people that may never, ever invested in real estate, and really getting them and pulling them to the dark side, right? He's giving them the content and the understanding and answering their questions to get them to invest with us. So not only is he talking to them about real estate, which I've got a heck of a story, but I'll just say after this, but not only is he educating people on real estate, he's also building that relationship and building that bridge of knowing and trusting and liking, and then bringing them to us specific. And here's the story I'm going to bring. Friends with an oil and gas family. Oil and gas people invest in oil and gas. We got a couple of those guys investing with us. And that was absolutely 100% all Jason.
Excellent. Excellent. So Jason's going to have to give his masterclass on that soon, but we'll settle for a doggy bag. What do you got, Jason?
Well, those oil and gas people, it was very similar to what Kent was saying at the beginning. Just let them talk 80% of the time, answer questions that they have, and then ask them prodding questions so you can see what their comfort level is and what their education level is. And so there was some education parts in there, because oil and gas investing and investing in apartments is similar as in LP side, but there are nuances that are different between them. So,
like, there's a lot of depreciation, I heard, in oil and gas, which is also true of multifamily. Is one that comes to my mind. Is that the one you were thinking of, or Want to get an example or so?
Common
Excellent.
terms that we throw around, IRR.
Oh, okay. Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, you
So
froze for a second and then you came
freezing.
back.
Oh.
So that's what that was. Yeah, exactly. So the arithmetic is the similar, and honestly, that makes sense. That's one thing that before I got into finance, I intuitively knew, which is that people who are at the top, they must have a back of the envelope way to rate these different investments. And if you really think about it, if you've got the financial backing to buy pretty much whatever you want, then you're only going to be interested in owning things that are profitable, things that have cash flow. And so, maybe it's not the actual cash that you're looking for. Maybe it's the equity multiples, so that, you put in $100 and you get out, 150 or 160 or whatever it is. But, that's the thing I think that's really important about this industry, getting all that stuff straight. So that has been fantastic. This has been the REI Rocks Review. This has been fantastic doing this. We're here every Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern. I don't know if you guys have anything else you want to mention before we call it a day and give everybody back their Friday.
So I did want to just say that we have a VIP subscription available. And the reason why that is so important is because I didn't learn all the things I know from reading a bazillion books or listening to a bazillion podcasts. I learned it from these sessions like what you just saw. We've done this 6 times. We're about to do number 7, March 23rd, 24th, and 25th. And there's like 50 hours of content each time we do one. Those are conversations that you get to be a part of, whether it's one-on-one with me and the person that I'm interviewing, or it's a group panel, or it's a masterclass. And for you to be able to have that subscription, you get to go over those sessions. You can watch them at 2x, 1x, 1.5, however you want to watch them. You can watch it over and over again ad nauseum. You can do whatever you need to do to consume that information. But I'm telling you, friends, it's a really effective way to learn the information. And I want you to be able to learn it the same way I did, if that's what you want to do. And you're going to do that through the VIP subscription. And we're going to get that information to you somehow. Maybe it's going to be in the chat. Maybe it's going to be in an email. But we are going to get the information to you, because with that subscription, you also get a free upgrade to the live side of the summit. And the live side is pretty magical. There's a lot of things that happen there that are a lot of fun, but you get a real sense of the community that we have here at the REI Rocks group. So we would just love to have you be a part of that. And it's called the VIP subscription. And I'm sure those QR codes and links will be floating around. If you don't see them and you want it, let me know. I will personally make sure that you get that.
Excellent. Yeah, the spot you can go to right now is theacademypresents.com. If you scroll down to the bottom, there's one space to buy that. But that's actually one thing that's on the agenda after this review, is to hop on together with Angel and Jason, because I got to show you what we've got for the brand new upgrade for the subscription site that I've been working on this week. I'm very, very excited about how it looks and how it works. So it's honestly like you could dump 5 figures on commercial real estate education, and it's really just pointing you into more coaching, more this, more that, and the other thing. And these subscriptions where you're talking to, the part that really amazes me about the speakers is that they've got the same attitude as all non-guru, non-coach real estate professionals have, which is, sure, there's mysteries about real estate, but it's been around for thousands of years. It's kind of old hat for us. So we don't really want to be keeping it at the entry level for the entire presentation, but we do always relate it to that level where if you're just getting started, you're going to have some idea of what's going on. And then if you have the experience, they're always going to throw you a bone as far as something better to consider, even if you have a ton of experience. So I'm really excited about the summit that's coming up next month.
It's going to be a lot of fun.
Awesome. Awesome. So thank you for joining. I'll give you the rest of your day. This has been the REI Rocks Review. Again, we're here on LinkedIn. We're on YouTube, right? That was the other thing I was going to mention is all these different platforms we're on. Some people make the mistake while they're building their list. They're not using the CRM. They're saying, oh, but my Facebook will always be there. I've got all these people. It's like, yeah, it'll always be there until you get hacked and somebody spams all your people, and then you get your account shut down, and then you lose your list, which is super duper bad. So you always have to make sure that you have a way of owning your list, making sure that you can still get in touch with all these people. So I wanted to mention that, but Angel, it looks like you had something else to say on that.
No, I was just agreeing. I was supporting your statement.
Excellent. Excellent. So anyway, make sure you subscribe, all that kind of stuff. I guess I'll use my silly thing of where I eat the sub here. Let's put that up on the screen and say goodbye.
Awesome.
Subscribe. It's yummy. Exactly. I'm so glad I subbed. Thanks again for watching today. We'll see you again next week.
Bye, guys.
Bye.